It's the kind of revelation the palace spends decades preventing. In this fictional reconstruction, Princess Catherine steps into a moment she was never supposed to own and drops a claim that detonates the monarchy's foundation. King Charles has a secret plan to change the line of succession. No hedging, no soft language, just a controlled statement that turns royal tradition into a live crime scene. And the terrifying part? Her tone isn't shocked. It's prepared like she's been waiting for the right second to strike. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. This is where our docudrama premise ignites into a full royal emergency, because Catherine doesn't simply raise concerns. She goes public with a claim that hits the monarchy in the one place it can't afford to be wounded. Succession isn't a rumor you can outrun. It's the spine. Touch it, and everything bleeds trust, unity, legitimacy, and the illusion that the crown is guided by inevitability rather than strategy. In this fictional telling, Catherine understands that the second she speaks, she's no longer just a wife or a mother or a symbol of calm. She becomes a disruptor of the system. And systems don't forgive disruptors, even when they're right. Her role is framed as an unwilling truth-teller, someone forced into action by an unseen escalation that turned private discomfort into public necessity. The tension isn't that she wants conflict. The tension is that she believes conflict has already been chosen for her, behind closed doors, without consent. You can feel it in the way she speaks, measured, precise, as if every sentence has been rehearsed against legal retaliation and public fallout. She isn't performing shock, because shock would make her look impulsive. She's performing certainty, because certainty is the only shield strong enough to survive the backlash that follows. And the plan she describes in this fictional reconstruction is packaged as stability on paper modernization, clarity, a move meant to protect the institution from chaos. But Catherine's implication is darker. Stability is the excuse, consolidation is the goal. Because the fastest way to control the future isn't to win hearts, it's to rewrite the rules that decide who matters. That's why her claim lands like a strike against the palace itself. It reframes the monarchy from sacred tradition to contested territory, where power can be engineered if the right people control the process. The backlash risk is immediate and brutal. Catherine versus institution. Mother versus monarch. Wife versus state. In this dramatized story, she knows the palace will try to reduce her claim into something safer: misunderstanding, overreaction, stress, misinterpretation. They will attempt to make her sound emotional so they can make her sound unreliable. But she preempts that by hinting she has receipts, something real enough to scare the system into moving faster. A memo. Meeting notes, a redacted file that reads like procedure and therefore carries the most frightening kind of credibility. Because once you introduce a document, you introduce a timeline. And timelines create accountability. Catherine's warning doesn't just allege a plan, it suggests a machine already turning. That's the cliffhanger she drops with surgical force. It's not a proposal, a process. Not an idea, an operation. Something with steps, stages, and people assigned to push it forward, while everyone else stays distracted by ceremonies and smiles. And if she's right, if the process is already in motion, then the real crisis isn't whether the plan exists. The real crisis is how far it has already gone, and who has already agreed to it in silence. And to understand why this single claim is so explosive, we have to unpack what changing succession really means, and why it's the one rule the palace treats as sacred. People think succession is a family tree. In this fictional thriller, it's a control system. It determines who gets protected, who gets prepared, and who gets sacrificed when crises come. That's why even the suggestion of altering it feels like an institutional betrayal. Because when you change the chain, you change the incentives. Suddenly people don't just compete for titles, they compete for survival. And the palace has one fear above all: uncertainty about who comes next. In this dramatized reconstruction, succession is stability in its purest form. The public may not know every rule, but they understand the promise: there is always a next. That invisible certainty calms a nation the way a lighthouse calms a storm, because even when the weather is violent, the beam keeps moving. That's why the palace protects the line like oxygen. It's not sentimental, it's structural. It's the difference between people believing the crown is inevitable and people believing the crown is negotiable. And once the crown becomes negotiable, every ambitious person begins asking the same question: negotiable for whom? Because succession is also leverage, even in a world that insists it isn't. Access flows toward the future. Deference bends toward whoever is perceived as the next center of gravity. Funding, visibility, and influence follow that gravitational pull, whether anyone admits it or not. So if the line shifts even slightly, loyalties shift with it. Invitations change. Briefings change. Who gets listened to changes. And inside the palace, those changes aren't abstract. They determine who feels safe and who starts feeling hunted. Heirs become symbols. Spouses become threats. Children become stakes. Everyone starts reading each other not as family, but as position. That's where the contrast between public tradition and private contingency planning becomes so chilling in this fictional telling. The public is given ceremony, a clean sequence, a calm narrative, a sense that everything is orderly. Behind the curtain, the institution runs scenarios. It builds contingencies. It tests what would happen if the unthinkable happened. And that's where law as weapon enters the story. Because changing succession wouldn't look like a villain twirling a pen. It would look like process. Legal theatre. Committees. Consultation. Language polished until it sounds like modernization. And modernization is a word that can hide almost anything if the public is scared enough to accept it. That's why the palace obsession becomes so dangerous. The line must look inevitable even if it's engineered. The institution can tolerate scandal, because scandal can be managed. But uncertainty about who comes next, that is the one thing that makes the entire structure tremble. And in this dramatized reconstruction, a source claims the plan isn't framed as removal, it's framed as modernization. Not a knife, a reform, not a rupture, a clarification. The kind of language that makes a radical move sound like housekeeping. And if that's true, it doesn't just mean the palace is considering change. It means the palace is already preparing the public to swallow it without realizing what it is. But if the plan is disguised as modernization, then the next question becomes personal. Why would Charles want the line to shift unless something inside the family has already fractured? In this fictional reconstruction, the plan isn't born from cruelty. It's born from fear dressed as duty. Charles is portrayed not as a cartoon villain, but as a leader cornered by risk public perception, internal rivalries, and the terrifying knowledge that one misstep can turn history against him. And that's what makes Catherine's claim so chilling. She's not accusing him of hatred. She's accusing him of strategy, of deciding the monarchy's future requires rewriting its bloodline script. Charles is presented as conflicted, caught between protecting legacy and protecting people, and the story refuses to make that conflict clean. The stability narrative motive makes emotional sense in a place where stability is survival. Prevent scandal, avoid chaos, maintain confidence, keep the institution from being dragged into unpredictable public judgment. But stability can become a cover for control if the person defining stability is also the person who benefits from it. That's the moral ambiguity at the heart of this fictional thriller: leadership as cold math versus family as human bond. How much human damage can be justified if the institution stays upright? Private influence begins pressing in around him in this dramatized telling, advisors urging drastic measures, factions applying pressure, voices insisting the monarchy must be protected from risk vectors that could undermine it. The stakes are massive because changing succession doesn't just change order, it reassigns loyalty, funding, and visibility across the household. It creates winners without having to crown them, and losers without having to exile them. And that's why the plan feels so threatening, because it's not only about who rules, it's about who gets to matter. Then the foreshadowed trigger event appears, a push that takes the plan from discussion to action. The viewer is led to feel that something happened behind closed doors that made Charles's circle say, "We can't wait." Something that made contingency planning become active planning. And Catherine's claim sharpens into its most terrifying form. The plan was discussed in a closed list meeting, not a broad briefing, not a casual conversation. A meeting with names chosen carefully, doors closed deliberately, and the kind of secrecy that exists only when a move is too explosive to be shared. And if there was a closed list meeting, then Catherine didn't stumble onto this. She was either warned, or she infiltrated the truth through the only way palaces ever reveal it: leaks. In a palace, the most dangerous thing isn't a rumor, it's a document. In this fictional thriller, Catherine doesn't go public with vibes. She goes public with a trail, a redacted memo, a meeting schedule that shouldn't exist, and language so carefully written it reads like a blueprint. The palace calls it misinterpretation. Catherine calls it proof. And the viewer is left staring at the real shock. If she has the file, someone inside Charles's own machine handed it to her. The receipt doesn't arrive like drama. It arrives like bureaucracy, which is exactly why it terrifies everyone who understands palaces. A memo. A briefing pack. A draft that doesn't scream conspiracy, but whispers intention through structure. Catherine's words, in this dramatized reconstruction, don't describe a plan like a rumor passed between courtiers. They describe it like a process discovered in paperwork, lines that look harmless until you read them as a map. Dates that align too neatly. Attendees listed in a way that reveals who was included and who was deliberately excluded. Missing logs that feel like a hand wiped a surface clean. Unusual routing documents moving through channels they shouldn't need, as if someone wanted deniability built into the delivery, and the redactions become louder than the text. Black bars where names should be, phrases cut mid-sentence, a paragraph that ends like it was interrupted. In this fictional reconstruction, Catherine doesn't treat those gaps as absence, she treats them as confession. Because what's hidden becomes the story, and what the palace hides most aggressively is almost always what threatens its legitimacy. The palace attempts to label it misinterpretation, because misinterpretation is a safer enemy than truth. But Catherine's framing is sharper. Misinterpretation doesn't require redaction. Misinterpretation doesn't require secrecy. Misinterpretation doesn't require meetings that never happened. Holding proof turns Catherine into a target, not a hero. That's the emotional knife edge of this segment. The moment she signals she has a file, she signals she has an internal ally, someone who either feared the plan enough to leak it, or resented the plan enough to sabotage it, or believed Catherine needed protection from what was coming. A whistleblower, a frightened aide, a moral insider who finally decided silence was complicity. Whoever it is, the implication is explosive. Charles's own machine isn't unified. It's leaking. And leaks aren't just information. They're betrayal with a purpose. The palace's containment reflex activates the instant documents surface. That's the inevitable escalation in this dramatized telling. Access gets restricted. Channels tighten. Language becomes disciplined. And the system starts hunting the source like it's hunting a virus. Not because the palace loves secrecy for its own sake, but because evidence turns a story into a courtroom. And courtrooms demand accountability. Then Catherine drops the detail that changes the stakes from scandal to systems thriller. The file references a codename, Project Continuity. A label so cold, so procedural, it sounds less like a rumor and more like an operation. And if the palace has a codename for reshaping succession, then the story stops being family drama, it becomes institutional engineering. In this fictional reconstruction, Project Continuity isn't a conspiracy theory, it's a workflow. A chain of briefings, legal consultations, and carefully staged public reasoning designed to make an unthinkable change feel inevitable. Because the palace doesn't topple tradition with a hammer, it dissolves it with procedure. And as Catherine describes the mechanism, the viewer realizes the real danger. If the system can alter the line once, it can alter it again whenever it decides stability requires it. The architecture of it is what makes it claustrophobic. Institutional engineering means process is used to hide intention. Meetings framed as review, drafts framed as clarification. Language that sanitizes power until power looks like housekeeping. Reform, modernization, alignment, best practice. In this dramatized thriller, Catherine explains that the plan isn't sold as removal, it's sold as protection. Protection from chaos, protection from scandal, protection from uncertainty. And that's how palaces win. They make the public feel grateful for a decision the public would have rejected if it was described honestly. Key players appear in the background like silhouettes, lawyers, private secretaries, trusted advisors, people who never need to raise their voice because their influence lives in documents and timing. Timing strategy becomes the lever. Crisis windows are used to push changes through when the public is distracted, when attention is elsewhere, when fear makes stability sound comforting. The plan creates winners and losers inside the household, whether anyone admits it or not, because shifting the line reshapes everything downstream: roles, funding, protection, visibility, future authority. And the public manipulation is baked in seeded narratives prepared in advance to pre-justify decisions. The palace doesn't wait for outrage, it plants reassurance before outrage exists. Then Catherine suggests the detail that makes the room go cold in this fictional reconstruction. The plan targets a specific branch, not the whole line. Not a broad reform. A selective correction. And selective corrections are where monarchy becomes most dangerous, because they reveal that the institution isn't defending tradition, it's choosing winners. And the moment a specific branch is mentioned, the audience's question becomes unavoidable: whose future is being protected and whose is being erased? In this fictional thriller, succession isn't abstract, it has faces. Children, spouses, siblings, futures that can be rearranged by one signature and one story. Catherine's revelation forces everyone to look at the family differently, not as relatives, but as positions. And once the palace starts treating people like positions, love becomes negotiable. That's when the fear turns personal, because the ones most at risk won't be the loudest. They'll be the quietest, the youngest, and the least able to defend themselves. The winners and losers dynamic doesn't need legal specifics to feel brutal. In this dramatized reconstruction, a shift in the line doesn't just change an order on paper, it rewires life. Security arrangements tighten for some and loosen for others. Doors open for one branch while quietly closing for another. Roles expand, shrink, or disappear under the polite language of streamlining. Education plans, once decided with a sense of inevitability, suddenly feel like chess moves. Media treatment changes too. One set of faces becomes the future, another becomes supporting cast, another becomes complication. And the palace, as always, insists it's all for stability, while privately measuring who benefits from the new gravity. That's where Catherine's motive becomes the emotional engine of this chapter. In this fictional telling, she isn't fighting for status, she's fighting to keep her children from becoming bargaining chips. Because the moment a system starts engineering succession, children stop being protected by innocence. They become protected by utility. Their value becomes strategic. Their presence becomes negotiable. Catherine feels that shift like a sickness. She understands that the most dangerous part of a palace plan isn't the document, it's what the plan does to the way people look at the children. Not as children, as leverage. Siblings and relatives react like a family and like a state at the same time, which means old wounds reopen with new stakes. Resentments that were once personal become political. Conversations that used to be private become calculated. People begin testing loyalty under the banner of duty. And that's the tragedy. Loyalty tests don't feel like betrayal at first. They feel like responsibility. Be careful what you say. Think of the institution. Don't make it worse. In this dramatized reconstruction, those phrases become the soft ropes the palace uses to tie people down. And once people are tied down, they can be moved. A counterstrike begins to form from those who feel threatened, not necessarily by attacking Catherine directly, but by seeking allies and leverage anything that shifts the narrative from Catherine protected the future to Catherine destabilized the monarchy. Because if the threat can't be stopped, it can be reframed. And that's where the suspense turns razor sharp. Catherine hints someone close to her was approached to cooperate. Not asked. Approached like recruitment. Like the palace isn't merely planning, it's building a coalition, assembling compliance in advance, ensuring that when the story breaks wider, Catherine stands alone. And if people are being approached to cooperate, then the palace isn't just planning, it's recruiting, which means resistance is coming. The moment Catherine speaks, the palace becomes two palaces, the one the public sees and the one that starts fighting back. In this fictional reconstruction, allies form overnight, some around Catherine, some around Charles, some around themselves. Leaks appear with suspicious timing. Old friends go quiet. New concerned sources emerge. And the most chilling development is how quickly everyone starts using the same word, legitimacy, as if the real battle isn't over succession, but over who deserves to define it. Factions solidify fast. Protectors of Charles argue that Catherine's claims endanger stability, framing her as reckless even when she sounds measured. Defenders of Catherine describe her as a guardian forced into transparency by a system moving in the shadows. Traditionalists tighten around the idea that the line must remain sacred, that any manipulation threatens the crown's soul. Opportunists see a rare opening crisis as ladder, and they begin offering help that sounds noble, while positioning themselves for whatever comes next. And every faction uses the same tool because it works: leaks. Selective sympathy, selective blame. Narrative engineering designed to make the public feel, not think. Access warfare becomes the quiet violence behind the scenes. Who can brief whom? Who can secure an audience? Who controls schedules? Who controls appearances? Who controls the order in which truths are revealed? People choose sides out of fear, not conviction, because fear is what palaces produce when they can't produce certainty. Meanwhile, a trap is laid. Provoke Catherine into a public overreach moment. One extra sentence, one visible flash of anger, one miscalculated phrasing, then use it as proof she's unfit, unstable, dangerous to the institution. The stakes rise beyond family conflict into a national confidence test, because the monarchy's credibility becomes collateral the moment succession is questioned publicly. Then the cliffhanger lands like a second heartbeat in the story. A rumor spreads of a second file, the one Catherine hasn't shown yet. Not a rumor about motives. A rumor about evidence. Something bigger. Something sharper. Something that would make the palace's current response look like panic, because it is panic. And once a second file is rumored, the palace's next battlefield becomes public optics, because optics decide whether Catherine is seen as protector or traitor. You've seen the royal wave and the perfect calm, but in this fictional reconstruction, every appearance becomes camouflage. The palace can't admit an internal succession dispute without detonating confidence, so it performs unity instead. But unity performed too hard starts to look like panic. Every pairing becomes a signal. Every absence becomes an accusation. And the public starts reading faces like evidence, searching for guilt, for grief, and for the moment someone slips and reveals which future the palace is really choosing. Because optics choreography becomes the only language the palace dares to speak, when words could confirm the worst theory. Placements, pairings, omissions, coded alignment masquerading as routine. A step closer to Charles, becomes interpreted as endorsement. A step away from Catherine becomes interpreted as punishment. A missing appearance becomes an accusation all by itself. And the palace fuels this frenzy by refusing to clarify. Because clarity would mean admitting there is something to clarify. Silence becomes a weapon. Denials that deny nothing. Ambiguity that breeds speculation. Statements that sound so polished they trigger the opposite of reassurance. In this dramatized thriller, the public doesn't hear calm in those lines. It hears rehearsal. And rehearsal suggests preparation. And preparation suggests the palace knew this was coming. Public reaction intensifies like a storm front building over warm water. Sympathy surges toward Catherine, then backlash rises. Then conspiracy appetite expands, as people sense the institution is managing the narrative rather than addressing it. One too perfect reassurance statement sparks suspicion, because it feels engineered to soothe without saying anything real. And the risk is relentless. One protocol slip will confirm the worst theories. A delayed greeting. A rearranged lineup. A sudden announcement that someone is unavailable with no detail. Every tiny deviation becomes a clue in a story everyone believes is bigger than what they've been told. Then the schedule changes, and you can feel escalation disguised as organization. Cancellations. Substitution, a reshuffling of who appears and who doesn't, presented as routine but interpreted as emergency. In this fictional reconstruction, the palace is trying to preserve the illusion of inevitability while the public watches it wobble. And the cliffhanger hits with brutal simplicity. An unexpected cancellation forces a reshuffle no one can hide. It's the kind of visible change that transforms speculation into certainty for millions of viewers. Because even if the palace refuses to say succession dispute, the choreography starts shouting it. And that reshuffle forces the palace into its most dangerous phase, because now it must choose whether to settle this privately or risk a public reckoning. What happens when the palace has to admit the truth to itself, even if it can't admit it to the world? In this fictional climax, ceremony collapses behind closed doors and the real monarchy appears. Strategic, frightened, furious. Catherine refuses retreat. Charles refuses humiliation. Advisors demand containment. And the question that ends all arguments lands like a verdict. Do we protect a family or protect the crown? Because once the crown chooses, someone will be sacrificed. The summit is built for damage control, minimal staff, maximum consequences, and the room feels like a pressure chamber where every word costs something. The emotional collision is immediate. Compassion versus institutional survival. Catherine argues like a protector who has seen the machinery up close and refuses to let children and legacy become tools in someone else's process. Charles argues like a monarch cornered by the terror of instability, insisting he is safeguarding the institution even if the safeguard looks ruthless. Advisors speak in risk language, not family language. What can be said? What must be contained? What will break confidence if it leaks? Moral ambiguity poisons the air because nobody is clean and everyone is calculating. Even the most sincere plea is weighed against what it would do to legitimacy. Then the escalation twist arrives mid-summit, shifting power instantly. New information, another document, another witness, another proof point that makes someone's certainty turn into silence. In this dramatized telling, the revelation doesn't just clarify the plan, it clarifies who supported it, who resisted it, and who pretended not to know. That is when the palace makes its coldest move. It chooses a face of stability. The figure who will carry the public calm, absorb the narrative, and make the institution look inevitable again. But choosing a face also creates resentment immediately, because it signals a future. It elevates one person as the anchor and quietly sidelines another as risk. The ultimatum follows, controlled and final. If this goes public, the next step won't be gentle. It's not only a threat, it's a declaration of enforcement. The palace will protect outcomes first. Reputation, relationships, even truth can be sacrificed if the crown believes sacrifice equals survival. And the final sting lands in the quiet after the ultimatum. Precedent becomes policy. The future isn't inherited, it's managed. A system that can engineer succession once can justify engineering it again whenever fear demands it. And when precedent becomes policy inside a monarchy, the real question isn't what changed today, it's what the palace believes it can change next. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.